Hey, econ students, this is Jacob Clifford. I am super excited to be working with you today. Today, we're talking about Microeconomics Unit 4. That's Imperfect Competition, Monopolies, Oligopolies, Monopolist Competition. This is it. This is microeconomics. You're taking all the concepts you learned in Unit 3 with cost curves and perfect competition, and now adding them to this whole idea of imperfect competition. It's tough, and that's why we're going to practice. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for joining me here on YouTube. If you didn't already do so, please hit the like button and please subscribe. Let me show you what we're going to do overview-wise today. This is the unit right here. Basically, like I just said, I'm using the AP Economics curriculum, although I know many of you are college students or taking the CLEP exam or other things, and that's fine. It's all the same stuff. Do me a favor really quick. Let me know super fast if my audio is working properly in the chats. I'll have the chat and I'll look at it from time to time. Maybe in the middle, I'll do some shout outs to you and your school. But I want to also welcome all the people who are the international students. You guys are awesome. Long story short, this is the unit. This is what we're going to cover. This is it. So basically, the practice sheet we're going to do is going to cover these things. If you didn't already do it, make sure to get the practice sheet we're going to be working on today. It's inside my Ultimate Review Packet. And if you didn't already do this, please get the Ultimate Review Packet. For the students who have, thank you so much for getting this. I don't have a Patreon because, quite frankly, I don't want to ask for money. I don't want donations. I want to provide a service. I want to provide a good, something where you can be like, hey, we both win, not just you giving donations. If you've been watching my videos, if you like my content, if you like this stuff, get the Ultimate Review Packet. It's awesome. All right, that said, enough commercials. I want to point out one more thing, though, really quick. The Ultimate Review Packet includes a bunch of videos that are completely exclusive to it. One of the things you want to check out is right here. For those who already have the Ultimate Review Packet, I have a chart practice video inside Unit 4 that talks more about monopolies, and I think this is the best video I've ever made where it helps students really understand the difference between perfect competition, monopolies, price discriminating monopolies. All those concepts are all covered in this video. So take a look at that if you have the Ultimate Review Packet. For the rest of us, we're going to jump into the worksheet, the practice sheet we're going to be doing really quickly. If you're a teacher, please don't use this practice sheet with your students in future years. I'm making this for 2020 free only because of this COVID-19 things. After that, it's going to be in the Ultimate Review Packet. So do not give this out to your students. If you have any questions about my worksheets, email me and I'll gladly help you out. All right, all that said, let's jump into it. If I didn't already say, thank you so much for being here. You've got this thing ready to go. Today's all about practice. There's a lot of practice questions. There's a lot of calculations. So get your pen ready. Let's jump into it. Here we go. All right. We're starting off with this practice sheet. Let me zoom out so you can see what we're doing. So big picture so you understand what's happening here. That's too far. So we've got monopoly for these first questions, and then it jumps into monopolist competition, ends it off with oligopoly and game theory. These are the 4 key skills that you need to be able to do in this unit. And notice that they're all practice-based. None of them are like, not for the most part. Your professor or teacher is not going to ask you a bunch of questions like, what is a monopoly? What is an oligopoly? What's the characteristics? You'll see some questions on that. But really, the vast majority of the questions are going to be these kind of, okay, here's the graph. Can you find profit maximization? Can you find profit? Do you find deadweight loss? Can you calculate deadweight loss? And that's what we're doing today. Jump on board with me. Here we go. All right, monopoly. Use the graph for a non-price discriminating monopoly. To answer these questions, you should understand just by looking at that graph at this point why this is a non-price discriminating monopoly. You see there's a demand and a marginal revenue. Again, one more time before I jump into this stuff in detail, remember these videos are designed for practice. This is not designed to teach you this stuff over again. I'm assuming you've already watched the summary video. I'm assuming you've already done the practice questions, and now you're here to practice. So if you're brand new to Unit 4 and you're learning and studying on your own, this is probably not going to help you. Go watch the summary videos first. All right, identify profit maximizing price and quantity. You produce where MR equals MC. Always, doesn't matter where it is, you always produce where MR equals MC. So the quantity is 7. Price, we'll find out in a second. Quantity is 7. Once you get the quantity, you got this. You know the price is right here at 40. No, absolutely not. Okay, never, ever, ever is the price where the MR equals MC for a monopoly. This is not the price. You charge up to the demand curve, which is right here. The price is 100. So if I go quantity up to the demand curve, because that's what people are willing to pay. So you wouldn't, if you're a monopoly, you can charge whatever you want. You're not gonna, charge people $40 when you know for 7 units they're willing to pay 100, so that doesn't make any sense. One time actually I was in class and I had a student who actually said that on a free response. They're like, oh, price will be 40. And I'm like, well, why would they do that? Like, well, they're going to be nice. I was like, nah. The monopoly, they're not trying to maximize like individuals' benefit. They're trying to maximize their own benefit. They're trying to maximize profit. So next question, calculate the total revenue. Making sure you understand on the AP test, you've got to show your work. So how did you get those numbers? So if you just write numbers, it doesn't help you when it comes to like getting points in the free responses. So calculate the total revenue. Total revenue equals the price times the quantity. Luckily, I have both of those. The price is $100 times the quantity, which is 7, so it's $700. $700, let me zoom in a little bit. You're not gonna be able to see the graph as much if I zoom in, but I'll try to keep both of them in there a little bit. Okay. So $700 is the total revenue. Calculate the total cost. All right, total cost. Total cost at 7, you go up to the ATC, not to the marginal cost. You go up to the ATC. Each unit on average costs $60. So the total cost equals the average total cost times quantity. That's the equation we did in the previous video. So you've practiced these cost curves before. So this means average total cost we said was 60. The quantity is 7. We already got that for a grand total of $420. $420 is the total cost. All right, perfect. So what's left over? Well, it's got to be the profit. So calculate the profit is the difference total. So the profit. That was weird. Profit equals the total revenue minus the total cost. And we've already calculated both of those. So it is 700 minus 420. So take the total revenue, subtract the total cost. That gives you the profit. That's going to be 280. 280. Now, I hope I'm not going too fast here. I bet you I'm not. I bet you for the most part you guys are doing great. You totally remember this stuff. In fact, you guys are in the chat and you're pounding out the right answers. That's awesome. Now, do me a favor, recognize that questions 1, 2, 3, 4, those are the basic questions you're going to see. Can you understand how a monopoly maximizes profit? And all I got to do is change these numbers to change those questions, the answers, but the questions are always the same. Find profit maximizing quantity, what's the total revenue, what's the total cost, how much is the profit? So if you can do once, you can do 1,000 times. It's always the same skill over and over and over again. And I think you guys are getting it. Now we're switching gears. I could have asked you to calculate consumer surplus, which is an area of the top triangle. I'm not doing that. In this case, I want you to find that deadweight loss. So let's mark that deadweight loss first. First, let's understand the idea of deadweight loss. Remember, we're producing 7 units. This is the profit maximizing quantity. That's what the monopoly is producing. The question is, what does society want to produce? Society wants this. Society wants down here at 10. This is the socially optimal quantity. That's where the demand hits the marginal cost. Society wants this because the price of producing the last unit equals the additional cost of producing that unit. Society's saying, listen, we value this, the exact dollar amount that it costs to produce it. But the problem is the monopoly is producing some amount less than that. So anytime, any firm, whether it's negative externalities, you'll learn in Unit 6, or any other firm here in Unit 5 or Unit 4, anytime you produce a quantity other than socially optimal, you're going to end up with some deadweight loss. In fact, in Unit 2, we did a bunch of questions with this idea. You had to draw deadweight loss. So deadweight loss, the area, we know is here. Notice this is not profit. It has nothing to do with profit at all. It has nothing to do with profit. That has everything to do with just how much output they're producing. They're producing 7 units, but they should be producing 10, so they're underproducing. To get the actual deadweight loss, you need to get the area of the triangle. So remember, it's 1/2 base times the height. So the base is 3, 7 to 3. So it's 1/2, base is 3. The height is 10 minus 40, which is, I'll put times 60. So 1/2, 30 times 60. 30 times 60 is 180. 180 cut in half, this is $90. So $90 is the deadweight loss, the area of that box. Again, I could have asked you for consumer surplus. I could have asked you to identify the area of profit, and your test might do the same things, but just make sure you can do all these skills. We already answered number 6, identify the socially optimal price and quantity. Well, we know the quantity is 10. So the quantity is 10 because I just said that. Where's the price? We just go up to demand curve. Price is right here. That's going to be what? 70. Price equals 70. This is socially optimal. In fact, I'll put an arrow and write that. Socially optimal. Okay, perfect. Identify the price and quantity where total revenue is maximized. Okay, total revenue is maximized. You might think, oh, right here, right? That we said maximize. That was where profit is maximized. That's not the same as total revenue. Total revenue is price times quantity. That's maximized right here at 9. And the reason why total revenue goes up, hits a peak, and then goes back down. So if I asked you to draw a total revenue curve underneath here, you'd see it goes up, right, and it goes back down. Identify the price and quantity. Well, the quantity we know is 9. And the reason I know that, that's when the MR hits 0. So when it says explain, it doesn't say here, but if the price and quantity, total revenue is maximized, quantity is 9, you go up to the demand curve, it looks like it's 80, price is 80. So if you just go up to the demand curve here, that would be the price and quantity where total revenue is maximized. This is where MR is positive, right? Anywhere beyond here, MR would be negative. So only at this one spot, in fact, I'll draw a line right through the middle right here because this is going to separate some stuff, which is going to look at question 8. By the way, notice what I'm doing here. I'm actually asking you exactly all the questions your teacher or professor can ask you. So right here it says, if the price is 120, so on this side is the demand elastic, relatively inelastic, or unit elastic. So all you got to remember is that when the marginal revenue is positive, this is the elastic side. And over here is the inelastic side. And the difference is this vertical line I've already drawn where MR hits 0. So this is the elastic range and inelastic range. And the reason why it has to do with total revenue. Over here, price could go down and total revenue would go up, right? So as the price falls, total revenue would be going up. Over here, price would be going down and total revenue would be going down. Price would fall, total revenue goes down. A monopoly will always produce in this side unless the government regulates them, which is in Unit 6, and that's a different concept. But a monopoly, if left to their own devices, will produce on this side. So will monopolies competition, because if you, let's say you're producing 13 units, right? They could raise their price and get a higher revenue. Like they can just produce less and have a higher revenue, so that they obviously would never be anywhere where the marginal revenue is negative. They'd always be on this side somewhere. So to answer the question, at price 120, well, it's on this side. 120 at the demand curve, this demand curve at this point somewhere is going to be the elastic. And you'd say because price would go down, total revenue would go up, right? You could also do a calculation of the elasticity coefficient if you wanted to. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm just going to say that. All right, identify price and quantity if the monopoly is... Okay. I wrote this question because I wanted to see if I could confuse you. All right, so let's see what you think. Thank you, by the way. I see some of you guys in the comments. You guys are saying some great stuff. Someone just said, Emmanuel said, thank you so much for doing this. Very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean that. Like, that's the feedback I need. What I'm going to do in a second, I'm going to see what you got out of 15 and answer maybe some of your questions. Let's jump back to the number 9. Identify the price and quantity of this monopoly's fixed costs increased by $140. Ooh, $140. We can do some calculations. We know at 7, the average total cost is 60. You can start getting your mind in that, and you just realize, wait a second, hold on a second. That's not going to affect the price and quantity. Price and quantity are going to stay exactly the same. So identify the price and quantity. Well, it's the same price and quantity as before. It's $100 price, and the quantity is going to be 7. The reason why is a change in fixed costs does not affect the marginal revenue or the marginal cost, and that tells you your output. It's only going to affect the ATC. So an increase in your fixed cost would cause the ATC to go up. So ATC would go and go up, but that wouldn't affect how much you're actually producing because ATC isn't determining how much you produce. What you produce is based on the marginal revenue and the marginal cost and the demand, and none of those shift. And so for this one, you'd say only ATC would go up. Demand, all right, demand, comma, marginal revenue, comma, and marginal cost stay the same. Now, we're going to jump more on this concept in Unit 6 when we talk about lump sum and per unit taxes and subsidies. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But understand the idea for now. And you know this from the previous unit. A change in fixed costs doesn't affect all the cost curves, right? So in fact, let me write it down here so we're on the same page. A change in fixed costs, when fixed costs change, this is going to change the average total cost and the average fixed cost, and that is it. It's not going to affect the biggest one, which is the marginal cost, right? So that's not going to change. So a change in variable cost, though, not equals, it's going to change. A change in variable cost will change the average variable cost, obviously. It'll change the average total cost, which is important. But the most important one, it's going to change the marginal cost, and the marginal cost tells you how much to produce. That's why that's important. A change in variable costs would affect output. A change in fixed costs doesn't affect output. That's why the answer is quantity stays exactly the same as it was before in question 9. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because it's tricky, and it's only going to be more tricky here in question 10. Identify the profit maximizing price and quantity if the government levies a 30 per dollar tax on this monopoly. Okay, stay with me. In fact, let me switch graphs so it's not as complicated here. There is a $30 tax. The $30 is this distance right here, right? So 3, 1, 2, 3, that's $30. If we do that on every single plot in the marginal cost curve, 1, 2, 3 would be here, 1, 2, 3 would be here, 1, 2, 3 would be here, 1, 2, 3 would be here. If I keep doing this, you're going to find out there's a marginal cost curve that now has gone up, which makes sense. You know, marginal cost is now $30 more per unit because this is a per unit tax. That ends up with a new marginal revenue, hits a new marginal cost curve right here. All right. So you had to kind of, it's helpful to draw this in, but that number of $30 actually matters. If I gave you a different number, the marginal cost curve would shift a different way. Let's go back to the graph real quick. If this is the new marginal cost, then this right here is the quantity, that's 6, and then the price is going to be 60, right? Right? No! Remember? Don't do the price. You got to go up to the demand, and over. So in this one, this be price equals, what is that, 110. And the quantity would equal, we said 6. Again, one more time, so we're on the same page. The marginal cost shifts up by a vertical distance of 30, which we covered in the previous video. Right? We covered taxes, in Unit 2. We actually did this, except it wasn't so complicated because it wasn't a monopoly. So this right here is the new quantity. You charge up to the demand curve, so 110 and 6, there's your answer. How you guys doing? You guys feel good about that? These questions are more complicated. I'm not going to lie to you. These first ones are the easier ones for monopolies, right? These ones get a little trickier because you're doing some calculations. These ones require you to understand the idea of, what does total revenue look like and what is elasticity. These ones are the hard ones. So if you got number 9 and number 10 right, and whoo, you're amazing. All right, now 11 is switching gears entirely. In 11, now what it's saying is identify profit maximizing price and quantity if this monopoly figures out a way to perfectly price discriminate. Okay, perfect price discriminate would change the actual graph. I'm running out of graphs, but yeah, I'll do it on this one. This marginal revenue would not be here if they were price discriminating. Remember, the marginal revenue goes down below the demand curve because to sell another unit, they got to lower the price of previous units they could have sold for a higher price. So in that case, this wouldn't happen. If perfect price discrimination means I can sell every single unit for a new price. So a new customer comes in, I go, hey, how much you want to pay? And they goes, I want to pay, $120. Oh, good, price is $120. Next person comes in, how much you want to pay? I'm going to pay $115. Oh, cool, the price is $115. And they charge exactly what people are willing to pay. This marginal revenue curve would now become the demand curve. They'd be the exact same thing. So you just follow the same rules. MR hits the MC right here. Ignore this cost thing, because it says right here, identify profit maximizing price and quantity if this monopoly figures out a way. If you got confused on this, don't be. I am assuming this tax is gone, so don't worry about this tax thing at all. So just understand that demand equals marginal revenue. If you get that, you understand this right here is the new quantity. So price, we got a couple problems. So profit maximizing price and quantity. The quantity I can give you. The quantity equals 10. The price is problematic. I'm doing this again as a trick. If you said the price is right here at 70, you'd be wrong because 70 is just the price of the previous product, right? Did you get that? I'll say it again. I'm sorry, of the last product sold. So if you think, the price is 70 right here at the demand curve, then that must be the right answer, and that's incorrect because it's not 70 because you're charging prices all the way. You charge one person 160, another person, 150, 140. So the price is, there's multiple prices. Multiple prices. Maybe I'll change this in case people are confused on this. Your teacher won't usually ask you that question. Sorry, you couldn't see it right there, but the multiple prices is, there's no one price. Just understand the idea. There's no one set price for price discrimination. There's multiple prices. The biggest, more important thing is you understand the quantity. Just understand the quantity socially optimal, which we said was right here, is the same as the quantity that'll exist with price discrimination. Notice these numbers are exactly the same because the price discriminating monopoly will continue to charge and sell as many units as people actually want. And so that there'd be no deadweight loss, which is actually interesting. There'd be no deadweight loss with price discrimination because they're producing the right quantity. They're just overcharging people. All right, in 12, everything changes again. In 12, it says, assume instead that cost of production change for this monopoly, so the marginal cost and the average total cost for every unit is $80. Now, sometimes you'll see this where, in fact, what I'll do is, like I said, I'm running out of graphs here. Yeah, this one's too ugly, so we're not going to use that. Let me use this one. This is the answer key. I don't want you to look at the answers, so I'll just use this. So the question again said if the price, the average total cost and marginal cost was 80. So again, this is starting to get ugly here, but understand that sometimes you might see a horizontal marginal cost and ATC curve. There's several textbooks that do this. There's teachers and professors that do this, and there are some reasons why they do it when it comes to what kind of monopolies exist and the social, how their costs work and how they have a lot of maybe fixed costs. Anyways, now you understand this marginal revenue still exists, but this marginal cost and ATC don't exist. So mentally, just kind of erase those in your brain. Now follow the same rules. First question is calculate under the new circumstances, identify the price and quantity. All right, here we go. Price you produce where? MR equals MC, which is here, because this is the new MC, that's the MR. So MR equals MC is this, the quantity is 5, and the price must be here at 120. So let's go ahead and write that down. Too many papers! So I'll leave this graph like this, so I'll refer to it if I need to. Okay, so we just said that the price equals 120 because that's up to demand. And the quantity we just said was 5. Right, now that actually almost gives us all the information we need for later on too. Let me zoom this out. I know this is hard for you to see and you're having a hard time with this. Okay, calculate the new total revenue from this profit maximizing quantity. Okay, price and quantity. We know total revenue equals the price times the quantity, which we already just calculated, which would be $120 times 5. What's that going to be? That's going to be, what, 600 bucks? Let's see. Yeah, I could ask Alexa. Yeah, it's 600 bucks. So 120 times 5, 500. Yeah, $600 is the total revenue, which, again, we already calculated before. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, it's the big box, right? So this big, in fact, let me draw this. You should recognize there's all these boxes here. This box right here would be the total revenue. Of course, it's not all profit. Some of it goes, some of it's costs. So how much does it cost? Well, the quantity up to the ATC, this must be, well, that's easy. That must be the costs. So let's answer that question. Calculate the new costs, profit maximizing quantity. The 80 times 5 would be $400. So this would be the total cost equals the average total cost times the quantity, which the average total cost is 80 times the quantity of 5 equals $400 of total revenue. Okay? How do you feel about that? You feel good about that concept? All right, left over. How much is the new profit? Profit must be $200 that is left over, done. All I wanted you to do, in fact, let me switch back to my view so you can see me. With these questions, I wanted you to see, those are pretty much all the questions that your professor is going to ask you. So hopefully you got them all right. There's a grand total of 15 of these questions. Do me a favor right now. Inside the chat, let me know how you did 15 out of 15 on this first page. Did you get 15 out of 15? Did you get 13 out of 15? How did you do? Because that's going to give me some feedback on what I need to cover when it comes to this practice for response we're going to do in a second. One of the things I want you to understand, again, is the type of questions I ask. I didn't ask them randomly. I asked them from the easy to the more difficult. And then here in question 12, I kind of changed the graph itself and showed you kind of a horizontal marginal cost curve in ATC. So there's a reason why I'm doing this and setting it up this way. I want you to be able to understand there's the kind of, identify price and quantity. Can you do those calculations? Do you understand the idea of deadweight loss and where's consumer surplus? Do you understand the idea of elasticity? Do you understand this idea of price discrimination, taxes first and changing cost curves? One more thing I like to ask my students when I talk about monopolies, right now, is this monopoly in the long run or the short run, right? In other words, are firms going to enter? What's going to happen if they're making profit? And usually students go, well, if they're making profit, firms would enter. You go, no, remember, it can't be firms entering because it's a monopoly. There's high barriers to entry. This is the long run. It is the short run. And so that's what makes this different than perfect competition. In perfect competition, there was profit and then firms entered. None of that stuff here. You got one graph. Like, think of it in perfect competition. In the last unit, there was a market graph and then there's the firm graph. Now the market is the firm. It's just one graph, and the long run is the short run. It's all just one thing going on. So it makes it kind of a little easier. Anyways, numbers are coming in. Looks like you guys did well. Yeah, some people are asking about fractional reserve. Please keep in mind, I'm making these videos. Systematically. So micro is Mondays, macro is Wednesdays. So if you want macro concepts, come back Wednesdays, and come on Fridays for case studies where I talk about the practical application of different economic concepts. Okay, looks like people are doing well for the most part and answering the questions, which are awesome. Let's move on to the next level, which is right here. We're talking about monopolistic competition with a brand new graph. Now, when it comes to your professor or your teacher, the AP test, there's one of two ways they ask you these monopoly questions. One, they either give you the graph like I've been doing, or they have you draw the graph. Make sure you can draw these on your own as well, okay? Now, it talks about monopoly competition. Use the graph below to answer these questions. We've switched gears now. Instead of there being high barriers, now there's low barriers. Firms can enter, and this is the graph that we have. Here we go. Identify profit maximizing price and quantity. Same rules as before. You produce where MI equals MC. There's your quantity. Price up to demand, we're going to say that's $25. So price equals $25. Quantity equals 4. Calculate total revenue. Total revenue equals the price times quantity. We just got those. So it's $25 times 4, which is $100 of total revenue. Calculate the profit or loss of the profit maximizing price or quantity. Notice I didn't, and this is what your test will do, I didn't ask you for the total cost. I kind of skipped that spot, and your teacher will do the same thing. I kind of left out the total cost. You need to know how to calculate total cost and then use that to calculate, the profit or loss that's being done. Now, on a monopolist competition graph, you should know that answer without even looking at the graph, especially if it's in the long run. But let's do the calculation really quick. The average total cost times the quantity gives you the total cost. And so you just go up to the average total cost, which is here, which is 25 times quantity 5, which is, wait a second, it's 100. Why is it 100? Because they're in long run equilibrium. There is zero economic profit, no economic profit. And the reason why is because the price equals the average total cost. If the price is 25 and the average total cost is 25, then clearly there's no profit. Now make sure you understand this from the previous unit, there's a difference between accounting profit and economic profit. They are making accounting profit. They are making more money than what it costs them to produce and hire their workers. They're not making money up and above that. So they're not making money over their opportunity cost of what else they could have made. Okay, will the number of firms in the industry increase, decrease, or stay the same in the long run? It's going to increase? No. Decrease? No, it's going to stay the same. Right? If there's no profit, there's no reason for firms to enter. So stay the same. There's no incentive for firms to enter or leave. No incentive for entry. So there's no reason for firms to enter or leave, because why would they enter or leave if there's no economic profit being made? If there was profit in the short run, because it is monopoly competition, firms would enter, right, if there was profit being made. Assume the demand decrease. Would the profit increase or decrease or stay the same in the long run? Okay, if the demand were to fall, that means the marginal revenue would fall, the price and quantity would fall. That means that the ATC would stay the same and they'd be making a loss. That is true. And if they're making a loss, then eventually what happens? Well, firms leave if there's a loss, and you end up with back in long run. So this is not a trick question as much as a tricky question. What's going to happen to the profit in the long run? It's going to stay the same. So profit, increase, decrease, it stays the same. In the long run, there'll be no economic profit. What? Really? Yeah, there's no profit. Remember, in the long run, there's no profit no matter what if firms leave. The only way this firm would have, this wouldn't be true is if this firm actually left the market. If demand fell, they say, okay, we're going to leave, and they leave. We're assuming, though, they're staying in the market, and if they stay in the market, if demand falls, right, there'll be a loss being made, and then some firms will leave. When they leave, the demand will go back up to where it was before, because now when firms leave, that means more customers can come to the remaining firms. But the answer is profit will stay exact the same. And the reason why this word in the long run, right? If the question said in the short run what'll happen, well, yeah, there'll be less profit. Profit will decrease. There'll be a loss. in the long run, or sorry, in the short run. Okay, last one. Is this firm experiencing economies of scale? One of the things you'll see for monopoly competition is connecting economies of scale and understanding the idea. First of all, I don't think I spent much time in the last practice video talking about economies of scale, but you understand what it is. The idea that getting bigger is cheaper. You can mass produce. When you start producing a lot of stuff, you can start mass producing the output by buying in bulk. You can use giant machines that work faster, but the total costs are higher, but your average total costs are lower. I made an awesome video about it. Take a look at economies of scale. But understand graphically, it's when the ATC is falling. So at this quantity, right here, is the ATC going down? Yes. So the answer is yes, they have economies of scale. And the reason why is because ATC is going down at the profit maximizing quantity. Profit maximizing quantity. By the way, forgive my horrible handwriting. Obviously, if you're just trying to copy this, you're going to be in trouble. It's not going to help you much. But understand this idea. Yes, because at the average total cost, this average total cost is falling. That means that they would benefit from producing more output. Their average cost would fall. In fact, there's this idea of excess capacity. Right here, notice that we're not producing a minimum ATC. They're actually pulling back production. They could produce more units at a lower average cost, but they're purposely not doing that because they're maximizing profit. So this distance here is this idea of something called excess capacity. It might be on the test, it might not. There's also deadweight loss. Might as well draw that too. Notice that's not the same as excess capacity, but there is deadweight loss because they're not producing the amount society actually wants. Please keep in mind that every one of them, there's 4 market structures: perfect competition, monopoly competition, oligopoly, monopoly. All these, every single one except for perfect competition, all of them have deadweight loss. They do not produce the amount society wants unless it's a weird situation like price discriminating monopoly or a regulated monopoly or something. But left to their own, they're not going to make the amount society actually wants. Only perfect competition produces exactly what society wants at the lowest possible cost. It has both types of efficiencies. Okay, how do you feel about that? There's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions here. Let me know right now how you guys did in part 2. Did you get 6 out of 6? Now's the time to tell me if you feel comfortable with this concept. I can come back later on and help you cover those concepts. But this is the questions you'll see for monopolistic competitions. Be able to draw that graph. I call this the sweet spot. This is where it's tangent. Students like to ask me sometimes, and this is a good question. If you were drawing the monopolist competitive firm and you drew the ATC like this, so it's supposed to go tangent. ATC goes down, hits tangent to the demand curve, and then keeps going down, hits marginal cost. But if you draw the ATC over here, you're going to miss a point because this suggests that at this quantity, there is some profit. The price would be above the ATC. So you can't have the ATC ever cross the demand curve. It's got to go down, hit tangent here. Not here, not tangent there, but right here at the price and the quantity. I call that the sweet spot. I tell students to draw a little star right here because that's where the ATC has to go. It can't go down here, not down here. It's got to go down, tangent, down, up. Sweet. Okay, if you feel good about that, awesome. Looks like you guys did well on the Monopoly competition, so I'm going to keep moving on to Oligopolies and game theory. Okay, if you're an AP student, last year there's 2 different free responses they gave, which were like level way harder than they've done before on game theory. I'm going to give you some of the easy stuff. If you want to practice, take a look at the 2019 free responses. Those for the AP micro exam, free response 1 and free response 2, or set 1 and set 2. Sorry, free response 3. It's the 3rd free response on the 2019 exam, both on set 1 and set 2. Particularly set 1 had this pretty wild question where it's asking students. There's two Nash equilibria. It's tricky. Someone just said that game theory is my favorite. Yes, game theory is my favorite too. I don't know why some students freak out about it. Some students are like, oh, it's really tough. It really isn't, especially if you understand and just follow the same rules as always. Just always follow the same rules, the same tricks. Never mind this junk. This was just a formatting error. Okay, use the payoff matrix to show 2 movie studios, DS and MS, which stands for Detective Studios and Marvel Studios, to answer the questions. So basically, they're looking, just understand the idea of game theory and oligopolies. There's 2 firms, and if there's only 2 firms competing, then that's an oligopoly. And they have a choice to make. They can make rated R movies for the summer, or they can make rated PG 13 movies in the summer. rated R, rated PG-13. And so now this ends up being their different choices they can make, and there's 4 outcomes. They can both do rated R, they can both do PG-13, one can do rated R, one can do PG-13, one can do rated R, one PG. You get the idea, you've seen this before. Okay, now let's practice. If both, by the way, let me back up. The same questions are going to ask you every single time. The first question usually has to do with, can you read the curve? Then they're going to ask you about dominant strategy. Then they're asking you about Nash equilibrium. The first thing I like to tell my students is just circle the one on the left. These numbers on the left, you know, anytime you see something that's circled, this is detective. This is DS. This is DS Studios. So if both DS and MS make rated R movies, how much profit will each of the firm earn? So they both make rated R, rated R, rated R. The answer is DS will make 50 and Marvel will make 40. Great, there's your answers. Basically, it's right here. So what you can't do, I know this is a problem on the free responses on the AP test at least. Students just write 50, 40, and then the grader's like, well, do you know which one's 50, which one's 40? So actually make sure they understand that, you know, who is getting each one of these profit. And just read the question, right? Remember, AP stands for answer the prompt. Does DS have a dominant strategy? Oh, now we're switching gears to dominant strategy. So here's the trick with dominant strategy. It's all about the stars. So what I tell my students is this. When it comes to dominant strategy, you let the other company make a choice, and then you decide what would you do. So what we'll do is this. We'll make detective make a choice. They're going to make rated R movies. So I'm covering up rated PG because they're not going to do that. So now it's up to Marvel to decide which one do they want to do. Do they want to have $40 make rated R, or do they want $80 making PG-13? Well, clearly, they would rather have the $80. That's better than 40, right? You're not subtracting these numbers. You're not looking, well, 80 is better than their 50 or any of that stuff. You know, all you're doing is saying, okay, which one would you rather have? All right, that's done. Now cover this one. That's not an option. If DC or DS decides to go this, Marvel can decide to make $30 or $60. That they'd rather have 60 because this is more. Now, if the stars align, right? In other words, they're always going to do PG-13, then that is their dominant strategy. So Marvel does have a dominant strategy, and it's going to be rated PG-13 no matter what. Now, let's do the same exact thing, except over here. Let Marvel make the choice. So let's cover this. Marvel does rated R. Which one is DS going to choose, 50 or 60? Well, they'd rather have 60. That's more money for them. And if Marvel decides to do PG-13, they can choose to do 70. Notice in this case, for this one, sometimes the star is down here, sometimes the star up there. They do not have one. So no dominant strategy. Right? And the reason why is sometimes they do rated PG-13, but other times they do rated R. It all depends on the other person. If it depends on the other person, then that's not a dominant strategy. Now, for this other one, for Marvel, have a dominant strategy? Yes, it does. No matter what, it is rated PG-13. No matter what, they are always going to do PG-13 because no matter what, that's going to give them more profit. Right? So that's what they're going to choose every single time. It doesn't matter if DS does rated R or PG-13. Either way, they're always going to do PG-13. So that's the idea of dominant strategy. Now, the reason why I do the stars thing is because if you get 2 stars in a box, that gives you your Nash equilibrium. Right? Give the information, where is the Nash equilibrium? What will each firm decide to do? So that make sure you understand the question. Each firm, so if you were, for example, if you were to write this, 70, 80, as the answer to this question, you would be wrong. This would give you no points, even though you understand what you're talking about. The question is, what are the firms doing? So in this one, DS is rated R movies, and Marvel would be rated PG-13 movies. So you have to describe what's actually going on here. This is the scenario where they end up. That's because the stars align, and that's where Nash equilibrium is. How do you feel about that concept? You feel good? Last question. Assume instead that these firms decide to collude to maximize profit. What will each firm decide to do? Guess what? The answer is exactly the same. They'll end up in the same exact spot. That's what's interesting about Nash equilibrium. Usually where they would collude, not always, but usually where they would collude is exactly where they end up because they are just working on their own private individual benefits, taking into mind what the other person's going to do. But that's what the 2019 question I was referring to. last year, the 2019 FRQ from the AP Micro exam. That's why it got tricky, because in this case, it's a hard question because they had two equilibria. The whole thing was just a weird question, which is good. Try those weird ones. Anyways, hopefully you'll feel comfortable with that. Someone just said, what's going on? I hope you're talking about, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but someone asked, we don't do kink demand curve. Yes, that is correct. We're not doing the kink demand curve. That's not a thing. Do me a favor right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. How did you do out of 5 in this little section about oligopolies? The good news is, and I kind of rushed this because I made a bunch of videos talking about oligopolies. I also made a Econ Movies thing about it using Batman and Iron Man. So I've covered this concept so much that if right now you're like, whoa, I've never seen that before, that's just a matter of going back and practicing. It's also one of those things that's just kind of a skill, so just keep practicing that skill. How'd you feel about it? Let me know right now. 5 out of 5 on the oligopoly question. I hope you guys did great. I hope this is helpful for you. Let me really quickly head back over here. We just covered the vast majority of this unit. Remember, this unit is mostly about the this idea right here of monopolies, which we covered. Price discrimination, which is its own thing, which I mentioned only one question, but you understand price discrimination, you should be able to draw that graph. Notice each one of these have a graph, monopoly graph, be able to draw it, price discriminating graph, monopolies competition, be able to draw those graphs. Oligopolies don't have so much a graph as they have like the chart, the payoff matrix things. Make sure you know how to do that. Somebody asked me how often oligopolies show up on the free responses. On the AP exam, they'll show up a lot. It depends on your class. If you're in college, there's game theory classes. Like the whole class is game theory. So it's on every free response for the most part. But for the AP test, they ask them, last year they asked, in fact, last year on the AP macro exam 2019, the first question was about a monopoly and the third question was about an oligopoly, which I'm not a big fan. I'm not going to make fun of them or give them a hard time, but I'm not a big fan of giving 3 fair responses, 2 of them being from the same unit. I'm not a big fan of doing that, but last year they did it. So make sure you know oligopolies. You can do this game theory stuff, and if you understand what we just did, like seriously, if you feel like, yeah, I feel good, right now type in 2019. Finish watching this video first, then type in 2019 fair response microeconomics, and then pull up that free fair response that's there on the College Board's website, and try that one because that's like a level up. They actually have you redraw it. So they have you do something and they say, okay, now redraw it. And I think if you did, between the one we just did and that other practice one, you're fine. There's nothing they can throw at you that's any harder than that. Hopefully, other people asking other questions about your other stuff. So I'm just reading this over here. So other people are asking some other questions about Nash equilibrium, about Coase theorem, and some other concepts. You really don't need much of that. The question I would just ask, is Coase theorem related to Nash equilibrium? Not really directly. I think externalities is when you mostly see that concept. Someone just said, you are my hero. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was very nice. You have weird heroes, but okay. All right. What we're going to do right now is we're doing this last fear response. Do me a favor. If I didn't already say this, and I'm saying it now again, one more time. If you're a teacher, please do me a favor. Please don't give these resources to your students. This is not for classroom use. If you want to use this in class or you want to learn more about my worksheets, come see me or come email me, and I'll gladly help you out. I'm really just trying to really help out students right now with this COVID-19 stuff. With that said, here we go. A few seconds ago, I just told you that the micro fair response included a monopoly in question 1, which is this actual question, and then an oligopoly in question 3 on the 2019 fair response. This right here is the actual monopoly question. So I pulled it for you. I also gave the answer keys inside the Ultimate Review Packet. If you haven't been in the Ultimate Review Packet, I know I keep saying this because I sound like a commercial. The Ultimate Review Packet is awesome, and it's like the best way to say, hey, thanks Clifford for making these videos. So if you get this thing, because it's totally going to help you out, and it helps me out because this is my job, helping you guys. All right, that said, this is more like a skill. You got to be able to do this. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to let you, for a second here, work out some of this. So I'm just going to read it and let you start drawing. Do me a favor, though. Take the graphs you've already done and put them off to the side. Make sure you can't see them and try this completely on your own. As the only gas station in a small town, Philip has a local monopoly on the sale of gasoline. Philip is currently earning positive economic profit. So it's giving you all the information you need. It's a monopoly, that's important, and they're earning positive economic profit. That's what you need to know for the graph. That's all. I can draw a monopoly if I have those two things. If I have that, cool. I'm going to draw this graph in a second. As you're doing that, let me just talk and let you guys work on that. Remember, there's different reasons to have a monopoly, so don't fall for like the classic, tricks. Like someone says, "Oh, is fast food a monopoly?" And you're like, "No, it can be." You can have a fast food restaurant be a monopoly. Like if you're in a small town and the only McDonald's in town, the only fast food is that McDonald's, then technically that would be a monopoly. So you can have, or maybe even like an airport. So there's only one in this really small terminal. There's only one restaurant. That could be a monopoly. Notice also that monopolies can't charge whatever they want. They're bound by the demand of the consumers. So those are things to keep in mind as you do questions and you understand monopolies. You're tempted to think monopoly is one of these huge giant companies. Not necessarily. They could be, something that would normally be a competitive industry, just they have a geographic monopoly, looks like in this case. Or there's like a government patent and other people can't produce. Even if it would be easy to produce, they can't produce the thing that they produce because they have a patent. These are all reasons why monopolies exist in the first place. All right, all that stalling, let's jump into it. Make sure you understand how to draw the graph. I'm going to draw it really big because there's a lot of things you have to do on this graph. You got price, you got quantity. Students right now, I'm getting a lot of emails from students who want to know about the 2020 AP pre-responses and what is the exam going to look like. I'm going to make more videos in May for that. So if you want to know about that, every May I'll make videos to help you with that year's pre-response. For now, let's just do this. Let's just try it. Demand, marginal revenue, marginal cost goes down and up. Now I tell my students, even before you draw an ATC, show me the price and quantity. The ATC is important, but that's the next level. Price and quantity, you produce when M equals MC, and they're actually asking you to label that. Quantity is QF, right? Profit maximizing quantity. That's all they want is the quantity. Looks like they don't even want the price. Does it say that? Draw correctly labeled graph, show profit maximizing quantity. Okay, that's it. You know the price is up to demand. Profit maximizing price. Oh, there it is. There's the price. Duh. The price, PF. Notice, if I was drawing profit or loss, it's still the same. So that's the thing. As students start drawing an ATC, they start getting confused. If I was drawing profit or loss, ATC can go up here, making a loss, can go down here. It doesn't matter. Just once you get to this point, just try to identify the price and quantity. This, by the way, would be 1 point right here. 1 point for identifying the quantity, the 1 point quantity, 1 point for the price. And then it asks the deadweight loss associated with this, shaded in completely. I can draw that too. Really? Yeah. Even before I draw an ATC. The ATC has nothing to do with the output society wants produced. It has everything to do with profit. So there's the deadweight loss. That gives you another point. The maximizing. Okay, now the last thing we do is we got to make sure we draw that ATC in. Since they wanted profit, ATC is going to go down. Hold on, it's going to hit a minimum at marginal cost, then go back up. ATC. You could have drawn it down here. That's fine if it went down here. You can draw it through here. That's fine if you did that. As long as though that is above the ATC, you're fine. So you can. It's not just one spot you could have drawn it. It didn't ask you to draw the area of profit, but you could label it if you wanted to. Deadweight loss is already labeled. That's 1 point. Maximize the quantity. Sorry, the maximum quantity at which this company would earn zero economic profit, labeled QZ. That would be here. QZ. This is right here. Maximum quantity where they'd earn zero economic profit. This right here, this is something new. I didn't really cover it in the last question. This idea of, where the ATC equals the price, that's where they're making no economic profit. We did kind of cover that in the Monopolies competition, but this is the most quantity they can produce and have no profit. And the reason why, just think of it this way. For this quantity, price is above ATC, price above ATC, price above ATC, price is above ATC. Here, price above ATC. Here, ATC is above price, be making a loss. So this is the only quantity where the profit is zero and the price equals the ATC. So right there is the answer to the question. Notice this was 4 points out of this little section. Do me a favor right now. Let me know how you did out of this little section so far. How'd you out of 4 points? In the answer key, of course, I gave you the answers along with all the answers to the practice sheet we just did. But 4 points so far right here. So how'd you do out of 4 in that section? All right, here we go. Now in B, this is all A. In B, it says, assume Philip fixed costs increase because of a new lease in the property and Philip stays in business. Will each of the following increase, decrease, or remain the same and remain unchanged at Philip's profit maximizing quantity? So if fixed costs go up, which we just covered, we totally just covered that concept. If fixed costs up, then BI, deadweight loss, will stay the same. Deadweight loss doesn't change because, and you fully explain this idea, marginal cost and marginal revenue and demand stay the same. And if you don't remember this, it's okay. Remember earlier? Okay, down here, I covered this earlier. When there's a change in fixed cost, the average total cost change, average fixed cost change, but not the marginal cost. And so I guess another way of saying that is, the marginal cost does not change. Fixed cost doesn't affect how much you produce because what you produce are different curves that determine that. The actual AP test for response, here's what his answers were. So let's look at those. It said 1 point earned for saying the deadweight loss will remain unchanged, and for explaining that change in fixed costs do not affect the marginal cost. If that's all you wrote, you'd be fine. Or do not change the profit maximizing quantity for the firm. Okay, so you get the idea. For number 2, let's answer this. Philip's economic profit, the profit, that will decrease, right? No doubt about it. The ATC, in fact, I'm going to draw it. This gets ugly, but it's okay. ATC, that's not a minimum. Let's just say it is now. So the ATC would go up because fixed costs have gone up. The average fixed cost would increase. All these things. Average total cost, and now the area of profit, which was here before, now becomes only here, and profit would actually get smaller than it was before. If you didn't get that, don't freak out, but just understand profit would go down, and it doesn't say explain. Now, when it comes to the AP test, you see the word explain, particularly this year, you make sure to explain it. You're not going to get a point unless you do explain. So if you just said deadweight loss stays the same, you wouldn't have got a point. So there it is. So Philip economic profit will definitely fall. The AP tests didn't require it, but it just says Philip profit will decrease, right? No explanation required. All right, 2 points. What'd you get so far out of 2? How'd you do? Did you guys get it? In C, let's finish this for response up. Assume the demand for gasoline decreases because people bike to work more often. Okay. In CI, people don't want to buy as much gasoline from this monopoly. The demand's going to fall. What will be true for Phillips to continue to operate in the short run? This is a wordy question that's asking a specific concept. Now, if you know your concepts well enough, when you see the question like, I know what it's asking. What must be true? Well, the price must be above the average variable cost. In other words, the firm shouldn't be shutting down. This is a shutdown question. I covered shutdown in the last practice question or the last practice video for Unit 3. What must be true if they're going to continue to produce? Their price must be greater than the AVC, or equal to, I guess, greater or equal to the AVC, or their idea is if they're making a, there's another way of wording that, which would be like if their loss is not as big as their fixed cost. Their loss must be smaller than their fixed cost. Let's look what they say here. 1 point for earning that there must be greater than the average variable cost at the profit maximizing level of output. All right, so that works. And the last question, what happens to the profit maximizing quantity and price in the short run, assuming firms continue to operate? The price and quantity, price will go down, the quantity will go down. If the demand falls, right, it's hard on this graph because it's ugly now. If the demand goes down, that means the marginal revenue also goes down. So both these curves shift down. That would be a new MR equals MC, and the price would go down, quantity go down. So just like a regular market, when people don't want to buy something from a monopoly, they're also going to see the price and quantity fall as well. All right, there it is. This was another 2 points for a grand total of, what is this? This is out of 9. So I'm sorry, this was out of 5 points up here. What? I'm sorry, I messed up earlier. I apologize, guys. So this is out of 9 points total. So there's 9 total out of this. And I just realized I must have missed a point in the beginning. 1 point for drawing correctly labeled Monopoly, showing a down. Oh, yeah. You get 1 more point for just being able to draw demand and marginal revenue. Like literally, that's if you could do that, you have price and quantity, then you would have got 1 point just for that too. Anyways, just understand the idea. What I want you to do right now is go out of 9 points. So let me know how many points you got out of 9 right now. That's going to help me be able to make better decisions to help you guys out. That's your pretty standard free response for the AP exam, and it's pretty good college, free response as well. Like that's what you're going to see. This is theory of the firm 101. Being able to draw the graph. This, however, is not that realistic. Like that's one thing I want you to know. This is not the most realistic thing in the world, for running a business. Like a monopoly doesn't draw this graph out and help make decisions, but it's an idea, and that idea helps you make decisions and understand, how the real actual world works. This, like I said, a tough response. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of this video. It's all about practice here in Unit 4. In fact, Units 3 and Unit 4 are all about practice. There's no way you can learn cost curves, and there's no way you can feel comfortable with monopolies and game theory and oligopolies and cartels or any of that stuff unless you actually practice it on the actual graphs and use calculations. So the stuff you just did with me, hopefully is super helpful because this, and by the way, if it's not super helpful, if you just did this and you're like, dude, I know all this stuff. The reason why it's not super helpful is because you totally get it. And you're just fine. This proves that you're ready for that final exam or for the AP test. I see you guys are asking a few other questions. I'll hang out for a few minutes in the chat and let you know, just kind of talk to you if you're interested. Keep in mind, the next video I'm going to make is macroeconomics. This is Unit 4, talking about the monetary policy and bank balance sheets, all these concepts you learn about the fractional reserve banking for macroeconomics. And then this Friday, I have case studies that talk more about practical application of economics. So make sure to show up for those because they're awesome. First of all, they're awesome. I hope you guys are doing safe. I hope your families are safe. I appreciate you coming and learning with me. I love being kind of your quasi-online teacher to learn economics. And if you're a teacher, please email me and let me know how I can help you with you and your students. Thanks so much for watching. You know exactly what I'm about to say right now because I always say it. And you guys are awesome for watching. Thanks for watching. Till next time.